Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Jared Brandon.
Whoa, you really let us have it with that, didn't you?
Jared Brandon.
Chris Graham.
Me, Todd Novak, and our very special guest.
Matt Olson of Mattoverse Electronics.
Yay for that. Woo-hoo. That is our special guest this episode, everybody. I told you on Instagram we had some super special guests coming on, and I'm delivering. That's what I'm doing right now. Get back over there. You just rolled over. You almost rolled over my toe.
You pointed something, and I wanted to look.
Oh, yeah. Just for your edification, the fellow that we have on the line across the way makes some really awesome pedals, and he's got a very unique approach to them. You may have seen his work. It's kind of weird. Your work is kind of twofold. You make pedals, but your work is also now, I think, recognized uniquely on Instagram because of your video backgrounds, which is really cool.
Yeah, I try and look at it more as an art project to a certain degree.
Yeah, well, it's coming through, and that's one of the things when I first saw your posts on Instagram, I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute, this is cool." And then I found out about then I was like, "Well, let me see what the pedals are about." And then I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute, these are cool." So, without further ado, we're going to get right into this. We hope everybody's having an excellent day, whether you're driving in the car, listening at home, listening on a plane. I don't know. I could go down the rabbit hole there. Let's get into what is going on in our music universe today. I'm trying to talk. I was talking like that on purpose because one of my favorite podcasts is Men in Blazers. I'm a huge Premier Soccer fan, and Davo, for whatever reason, when he gets ready to talk about something, he makes it a point, and he talks like he's very staccato. And I was like, It seems like a trick, so I'm trying it. Is it working?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
It got my attention.
Maybe they're listening. If Davo and Raj are listening, I love you guys. Oh. Anyways, they're probably not, but that's okay. Also, real quick, big shout out. We sent something over to Mark Marin, and hopefully we sent him a shirt. Hopefully he likes it.
Says something on one of his podcasts.
He probably looks really sexy in it.
Awesome.
Maybe he cut off the sleeves.
Yeah.
I think he'd be like a sleeve cutter offer. Maybe just around the house. He might be a sleeve cutter offer. I'm not really sure. Anyways, great podcast. The WTF podcast from Mark Maron.
It's been around for a while.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah. I like the Gallagher interview particularly.
Oh.
It's an early one, but it's awesome.
Yeah, the early ones are harder to find now. I mean, they're still there. It's just you got to subscribe to all kinds of crazy stuff. All right, Jared, why don't you lead us off here?
This week, I had the pleasure to kind of rehaul a guitar, beautiful guitar. It's an Epiphone. I put a whole new wiring harness in it. I put all new pickups in it, and the thing sounds just it's night and day from what it was. It had the Epiphone electronics. They're not terrible, they're not bad, but we kind of stepped it up a notch and we went boutique. And it just turned the guitar into a tone machine. I love the way this thing sounds, and I'm sure the customer is going to be very happy about it.
I hope so, too. I hope that customer is very happy, considering it's me.
That's right.
Wee! So, I asked Jared to take a look at my Sheraton 2, which I really love, but I just knew he could step it up with his pickup, so he did that, and then he pulled it apart. And lo and behold, he said, "Hey, man, I don't feel comfortable putting these pickups in here without kind of redoing the electronics a little bit." So he went ahead and did that. So I can't wait to. I haven't even heard it yet. It's sitting right in front of me, but I'm very excited to hear it. So much obliged.
I took some pictures of it during the process, so you guys will get a visual.
And it's cool because he just traded me some yard work, and I have to watch his dog while he goes out to dinner one night. Yeah, that was very nervous laughter from Jared. So that's cool. So he did that. And guys, what we're going to do is we're going to do a full-on blog post about that process, because I think there's a couple things going on there. We've got a Populous brand, so Epiphone. We've got pickup changes, which is one of the biggest things you can do to change your tone. And you also have the electronics on it, which is sort of can be a dark magic to some.
Yeah, it controls the pickups. I mean, the pickups
what?
go through the electronics. Yeah, it's a huge deal.
On top of that, we were doing this through a semi-hollow body, which I didn't want to touch that with. I love working on guitars, and I looked at that F hole, and I just was like, F that hole. I don't want to. I don't want to mess with this. So let's hear from Matt. What have you been doing this week?
Trying to build a bunch of pedals for one, I guess, but playing guitar, I've got a show coming up, and so just sort of trying to rehearse my own parts for that and get a little board put together, which pedals I want to use for it, I guess.
Excellent.
And I guess I'm just trying to use only my own pedals. Besides a tuner, I guess I haven't built a tuner, but I sort of started.
That would be really interesting if you did that.
Yeah, I don't think it's probably worth. You can get a tuner for like $4, I think. So.
Yeah, true. What kind of guitar are you playing?
I play a road worn Strat. It's my poor man's relic. I used to work at Dave's Guitar Shop here in La Crosse. I don't know if you guys have heard of that place, but I worked there for about a year. It's been probably 7 or 8 years ago now, but during that process, I pretty much had every boutique guitar and amp you can think of at least once, because stuff would come in and, you got used stuff especially, and we could also like a lot of times take things home to try, especially the used stuff, so that we knew the stuff. So during that process, I sort of got to try out all the fantasy gear setups, I guess, to a certain degree.
Nice.
Wow, yeah.
And luckily, I've sort of gotten it out of my system, saved my sanity a bit. But
so you get to divert money into building your pedal kingdom, then.
Yeah, I mean, building pedals was actually part of it was to get me out of the gear mania. It was to sort of slow down the process.
Well, now you have the advantage of knowing what a lot of different gear sounds like.
Yep, yeah, for sure that helped. But
That's kind of like in the Seinfeld episode where he says, "Sex to save the friendship." when they're trying to figure out, anyways.
Oh, I'm familiar.
That's cool. What color is that? Is that like your baby? Is that like your baby guitar? Or?
I guess. I mean, it's black. I probably play this little like cheap Squire Strat that I sort of use as my test guitar when I'm working on pedals and stuff. That's probably gets played the most out of any of the guitars at this point. I'm not really that sentimental about gear. I usually buy like the cheapest bargain bin thing that I can be happy with, because when I have the nice guitars, I'm too nervous to take them out and gig with them, and I'm always freaking out about the humidity in the winter then. And
right. Is the band that you're playing in, is that something you've been in for a long time, or?
This show I have coming up it's like a sort of one of my own projects, so I actually like sing in that one.
Oh.
But I mean, I started playing guitar when I was, I guess, 14 or whatever, and played in a band for a long time based on that. And I just played guitar on that, and that was sort of more, I guess it was the 90s, so it was, aggressive rock.
Right. Cool, man. So let's hop over to Chris, find out what's going on with him.
Yeah, so not as much guitar this week as normal, but I'm kind of to a good spot with my electric guitars right now, where I've got my well, wait a minute. Actually, a lot's happened.
I'm like, wait a minute.
A lot's happened. I finished a Telecaster build, and
a thin line
Telecaster, and this I used to live in Athens, Ohio, and that's the home of Stuart McDonald, aka Stu Mac, the luthier supply company, probably top 2 or 3 or so in the world. And so lots of people that I knew worked there. And one of my good buddies gave me this awesome body with a flame maple top, this thin line telly, and then gave me a neck that he had reliced. And I started to work on it about 10 years ago, and I tried to do a nitro finish on it, and I just ruined it. It was awful. And so I sort of through the podcast, I've been getting back into, goofing around with guitars a little bit more than I was before, and decided I was going to go for it, and figured out that you can strip nitrocellulose off a guitar body if it's nitrocellulose. A lot of times it's poly or something.
Yeah.
And just with acetone, aka nail polish remover, which you can buy for like $3 a quart at the hardware store. So I wiped it all down, and it took me like 15 minutes to get it back to bare wood. It was awesome. And then I finished it in tung oil. And tung oil is this amazing, it's an oil made from a nut.
T-U-N-G, by the way. It's not like oil from a cow's tongue or something.
Yeah, it's T-U-N-G, and you essentially wipe it on with a piece of cotton, and then you let it dry, and then you wipe a little bit more on, and you have to wait a long time for it to set up, but it makes wood grain pop. It makes the grain very three-dimensional, much more so than a traditional finish. And so I finished my telly build, and I put some Brandon wound pickups in there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it sounds stupid good. I'm
Nice.
obsessed with it. So I'm not playing my other guitars that much
Sorry.
right now. Just playing
Yeah.
that telly a lot, and it's been super fun. Really warm and glassy and flexible. Do just about anything I want with it. I can make it sound like AC/DC or make it sound like Mark Knopfler. It's sweet. I love it.
Yeah, those were the All Nico 3 that I did for you.
I love it.
Good
Big fan. I paid my own money for them. It was great. So this is not an endorsement. This is an unpaid endorsement. This is a for real. I believe in them. I was more than willing to pay for them.
Thank you.
I'm still, I'm on the edge. So what I have been doing this week, and as we wrap up our little "What Have We Done This Week" segment, drum roll. I don't actually do a drum roll. So I got speaking of Stu Mac, I got which we have no affiliation. We are not supported or affiliated with StuMac.com.
Good place, though.
Maybe someday.
I got a nice ebony bridge.
That is nice.
For my Godin archtop 5th Avenue Kingpin. Right now, it has a plastic archtop bridge in it, which it's kind of like, man, you went to all that trouble to make a nice guitar, but it's got like a plastic bridge. Like, I don't understand that.
Does seem pretty silly.
And it's the kind of plastic where if you click it, it's like, wow, that's like really, really, really hard and very porous plastic. All the things that don't make resonance happy. So I said, you know what? I would really like to change this out. And I think it was only like $25, man. But this is I'll pass it around. This is a really well finished ebony.
It's really light.
Yeah, it's what's the attenuated? No, compensated bridge, and it's the floating kind. So it's if you're changing the strings, careful. You got to mark where that bridge is supposed to go.
Kind of like a violin.
Yeah, it's essentially the same thing. So anyhow, I got that, and
Don't drop it.
The only thing is, and this is what Chris was pointing out earlier in one of our phone conversations, but I'm going to have to do a little bit of sanding on this. Fortunately, not much, but if you are out there and you are going to replace your bridge, if you have an archtop and it's not like a multi-$1,000 archtop, check your bridge. Might be made out of plastic. And in doing so, when you replace that, there's the feet are curved, the feet that sit on top of the arched body, and if you don't seat that properly, you'll probably get at worst some weird vibrations, and also that may affect your tone. I don't know.
For sure, it definitely will.
Chris says for sure. He's an acoustic fella, so
the same goes for acoustic guitars too. With if you've got a cheap acoustic guitar,
yeah, but nobody really plays those. So.
Yeah, probably not. Just putting and Stu Mack, another shout out to them. They do
no affiliation.
No affiliation. You can get if you've got a Gibson or a Martin, you can, and you have a cheaper plastic or there's some other materials that are like Corian and Tusk, which are all far inferior to real bone. And you can get a bone saddle and put that in the guitar. And if you have even like on a really cheap Yamaha, you put a bone saddle on there, and the difference, mind blowing.
Interesting.
So much tone.
Bridges are more sensitive than what the average person will think. I mean, you can, what they do with violins, if you want to mute the sound on your violin, you get another piece of wood, which is called a mute.
Yeah.
And you add it to that bridge. You kind of slide it down.
It looks like
and
a comb
pinches.
almost.
It does, and what it does is it prevents the bridge from resonating more, and you get more of a.
Yeah,
it's good for practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something also, that's a good point. If you do have an archtop or an acoustic and you're
or
playing,
semi-hollow.
Or semi-hollow, and you just want to kind of dull some of the acoustic, just a little piece of cloth, just even weaving it in between your strings will take care of it.
Sure.
Anyways, okay, wake up, everybody. Sorry, archtops and stuff. And it's an electric archtop, so give me a break. So, everybody who's listening is probably wondering, dude, why are you talking to this dude? This fella, Matt Olson of Mattoverse. And the reason is, everyone, as I kind of mentioned before, I spend an awful lot of time on Instagram, and I ran across a video and then quickly fell down a rabbit hole of Instagram posts that this fella Mattoverse was creating, and I was really entertained and very intrigued, because I think I was seeing something that was kind of different. A lot of pedals, there's a whole slew of pedals that are sort of like do-alls, like it has this huge range of what it can do. And what I seemed to be seeing was somebody who is putting a little bit more of a laser focus on functionality. And I have also mentioned in the past that we try to focus on makers, builders, luthiers, etc., that are doing something unique, not only with the product that they're making, but how they're getting in front of us and making us pay attention to them. And I definitely found that in spades, both with the product and the manner in which you were giving us those things. So, yeah, what microphone? What microphone says what? Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to get Matt on here and have him tell us about his approach, how he got started in guitar, what point he decided to get into pedals, and talk a little bit about his approach, which is pretty unique. So, without further ado, Matt Olson of Mattoverse.
Okay, well, I mean, thanks for all the kind things you said. I appreciate the feedback. Sometimes on the internet, you put stuff on there, and it's hard to really gauge if people are, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
the engagement is somewhat superficial because it's not that hard to click the like button or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the kind words. I mean, as far as how did I get to making pedals, I don't know how far back you want to go.
Well, how did you decide that guitar was a thing for you?
I mean, I guess that goes back to like, junior high. A buddy and me, used to spend a majority of our time playing Game Boy or video games. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
As you do at that age. And then, he had an uncle that played guitar, and they had some sort of a bit of a more musical family than mine was, but he suggested we get guitars, so of course we did, as a lot of teenagers do. Got our PV guitars and our PV amp at the local music store, and started hammering away trying to learn grunge music, Pearl Jam and Nirvana primarily, but all the stuff sort of around that. And then we played in that group, and eventually his younger brother joined the group. And anyways, that's what got me into guitar. But then through that, we toured around, out of high school, we sort of got a record deal at a sort of an imprint on a label out of New York, and got a chance to tour around for a couple of years and play with some of the bands we liked in the 90s, opening for them, like Days of the New or Live or Seven Mary 3, sort of a lot of the bands we sort of grew up covering. I guess at that point, it was the early 2000s, so they were more on their we're going to play the hits tour to try and keep making some money. But, so music was a pretty big part of my life, but I didn't start building pedals at all until the last few years, and I'm 35 now, so...
So, at what point did you?
Maybe I'm getting off track of it because it's such a long past.
No, that's cool. You said do you remember what your first guitar was?
Oh yeah, I had a Yamaha Student Electric that I bought with paper out money. I bought from my brother's friend at college that he had bought, and he had an old little PB backstage combo or whatever, like back when they really looked like truck bed liner.
Right.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those too.
Yeah.
My buddy has one of those Yamahas as a starter.
Yeah,
and he
it's sort
still
of
has it, and we're almost 40 years old.
See, that's pretty cool, I think. I never really hung on to it. I always thought I sucked at the first years because of that guitar, and then one time my buddy's uncle came and played it, and I was just like, oh God, it's definitely not the guitar.
Well, you could set it up, and it's actually a decent guitar.
Oh yeah, no, I'm
nice
just saying,
guitar.
I was trying to blame the guitar, and the guitar wasn't the
course.
problem. It was that I couldn't.
I'm still doing that, man. Well, that's why I got new pickups, because I'm like, I sound like crap. I must need new pickups. So, is there anybody in particular that made you want to start playing guitar? Did you have an influence, or did you hear somebody? An album or a tape or something where you're like, oh my gosh, I got to figure out what that feels like.
At first, my buddies and I were big Pearl Jam fans, so we'd tape them on Saturday Night Live and watch it over and over. And Nirvana, of course, too. As far as guitar specific people, I got pretty big into, Stevie Ray Vaughan when I was a teenager, like a lot of young guitar players do, I guess. And we got pretty obsessed with him, and trying to, I had a SRV Strat,
Wow.
And I'd try and play Texas Flood for hours in my bedroom poorly.
But you tried.
I didn't have the finger strength, but yeah, I was big into that. We were playing around in the band, playing 4-hour cover shows all during that time. So it's always good to fill time playing more solos in the key of E over sped up Eric Clapton songs. But
so you started making pedals, and give us a story behind that. Where did you start and why?
Yeah, the pedal building started, I guess it's only been probably a few years ago. I'd always been wanting to learn about it, and had sort of gotten books and stuff in the past and just could never make any progress. I guess went as far as buying those kids circuit sets that basically just push together with plastic. I tried those years ago and didn't really hook up with anything. But
the Radio
I sort of
Shack
got
ones, right? The Radio Shack.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody sort of had those kits when they were kids or whatever, but never really, took in with me. I never really felt like I got it. And then, over the years, I got sort of big into synthesizers and analog synths and bought a bunch of those to play with. And then, I was sort of just going crazy because I sort of traded the guitar fix of trading guitars and amps and all that stuff for like doing that with synthesizers then. And then I ended up sort of getting this old analog synth at a pawn shop. Then I had a tech I know fix it up, and I made like, $2,000 selling it. And I was like, all right, instead of just like buying another synth and then just sort of like trading all my money away till I'm back down to the Casio keyboard, like I'm going to like use this money to like try and fail at building stuff. You know what I mean? So at first it just started out, like building like a clone of a boost pedal. You know what I mean? A lot of people that get into like audio electronics sort of start with the same sort of basic guitar circuits, which is often like a boost or something, or a tone control, or you know what I mean? Just like the things you'd put in a guitar itself. So
the synth that you sold, that was sort of seed money to start the pedal venture.
Yeah, it was exactly. It was like, this is sort of like free money, and normally I would fritter it away on buying and selling more gear, you know what I mean, and paying for shipping as I got the 7th amp for that year,
Oh, man.
And then
I can't get out of that loop, man.
Yeah, so it was sort of like a means to get out of that, but it was also like, all right, you're not going to like, you're a moron. You can't really like, it's not sticking to read the books or to watch the YouTube videos, you know what I mean? I have to like try and learn how to solder stuff together and just like screw it up over and over. You know what I mean? But being to be like, okay, well, it's going to cost me $10 to do this wrong, and then it's going to cost me 10 more to do it wrong the next time. But by the 5th time, like, you're starting to do it right. You know what I mean?
That would have cost you $50.
Yeah. But I mean, like, now I'm sort of gaining like a better, like, I'm no electrical engineer by any means, but I'm gaining like a better intuitive understanding of some basic principles. You know what I mean? Like, if I put that in the wrong place, this bad thing's always going to happen. Like, I got to learn that it goes here instead, or whatever it may be. But then from that, I just started building first like little noise makers, like drone synths, because that's like another sort of entry point. And there's a book I got called, I think it's called like The Art of Hardware Hacking or something. But it's more based around like circuit bending toys and sort of basic like oscillator circuits. And that's something I had sort of gotten into. I had purchased a couple like circuit bent things and some weird stuff people have made off eBay and things like that, and was always curious about it. So, initially I just started building those and like putting them in little tins and stuff. And then I put them on Reverb or whatever, and I ended up starting selling some of them. And I was like, oh, this is weird. You know what I mean? I didn't think anybody would really care about them. So I was just trying to make them like in weird cat tins and stuff to make sort of like a, something that made noise and did something that you could sort of manipulate, like a synthesizer that had knobs, like it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But something that also sort of looked interesting and was cool on its own. You know what I mean? That even when it wasn't.
Well, let me ask you this. So, like the pedals that you sent us that we've been playing with are very interesting, and they're super unique, as far as noise makers go. And I think some of the perplexiness I think that Todd was getting at is, you're talking about your heroes, Seven Mary 3 and Pearl Jam and Stevie Ray Vaughan. Those guys would probably these are pretty out there, as far as pedals go, as far as being interesting and unique, and
it's almost the exact opposite of what those guys are about.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of that stems though from like, I was big into like those groups and that, blues music and that kind of stuff when I was a teenager, and then once I wasn't, as I sort of got out of high school and things, like my musical taste varied pretty widely away from that.
Yeah. So with that, like me and Todd were playing with some of these pedals, and we're sort of like thinking about, man, like what's the band, what's the artist, for you that would just be a dream come true of XYZ artist is sold out Madison Square Gardens or I don't know, the Ryman Auditorium or something really prestigious, and they're using your pedals, and everyone's like, how do you do that? Oh, he's got those Mattoverse pedals. Who's sort of your dream, someone like that would find your pedals and that would really serve their style of music?
I don't know if I really think about it quite from that perspective, but I can say that like stuff that probably influenced, me in that direction. I mean, I was big into Radiohead, but I didn't really get into them until Kid A. So I sort of started on the weird stuff, so I always sort of like the weird stuff better. You know, I mean, I like a lot of weird. I guess my wife says it's weird. You know, she doesn't like, what's this weird noises in this? You know, I like deer hoof and other, you know, animal. I like, you know, just like I don't really. I don't stay on anything for too long, but I get pretty into things for short periods of time. So
I just won a trophy in here because right as you were about to say what the name was, I looked over to Chris and I said, Johnny Greenwood. And I'm pretty big into radio. I was like, yes, I win. Winner. I'm a winner. Hey, real quick, Jared, why don't you tell everybody what pedals we have in front of us so they can understand what we're referencing here?
Well, the first two pedals I actually had and tested out was the Drone Tone and the Bad Passenger Fuzz. Liked them both. The other two is Swell Delay and the Wobble Room. I did not get to use the Swell Delay, but I used the Wobble Room. It was pretty cool. I love the design on these. The visual is on the visual design on these pedals is just fantastic. It goes right with the effect, in my opinion.
They kind of feel like the pedal, which I think is cool.
That's a thing. The lights, the knobs, pretty user friendly too. Drone Tone I had some fun with, and you know what? Something I wanted to mention before I got into actually looking at these pedals in front of me. When I use these pedals myself, I kind of thought of associated these effects with the band Muse.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think he has those effects inside of his guitar or something like that. But
he had an actual touch screen on the front of his guitar. I mean, that was one thing that they did, but they're more than that, obviously.
Well, yeah, but that's just what I associated these pedals with. But and I like that music too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used the 3 out of the 4. Really, I liked all 3 of them. I messed around with them for a while.
Yeah.
The Drone Tone was really cool. You just mess with the you know, and you get the. And
so let's explain what that is.
Here's the mix volume. You can mix that too.
Yeah, let's explain that real quick. Or actually, instead of us explaining it, why don't we have the maker kind of maybe run us through these 4 particular ones, and then kind of get into any of the other things you want to chat about real quick with the other pedals. So starting with the Drone Tone, Matt.
Mm-hmm. Well, with that one, it was pretty much. I was sort of making these drones, sort of made that, you know, it's basically just like a pulsing sound that you can sort of set the speed and pitch of. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people would say, oh, you know, can I plug my guitar into this? You know, and at the time, like I hadn't really considered wanting to do that. But after people started messaging me and asked me about it, I was like, oh, I don't know, you know. And so I experimented around with that and tried to do like sort of a basic version of that. And actually the first pedal that did that was this one I don't build anymore called the Gator Drone Fuzz, which is sort of like the Drone Tone combined with the Bad Passenger Fuzz in one pedal. I mean, tonally it was slightly mental. It was slightly different, but like initially I had it connected with the fuzz because the sort of the pulsing sound would sort of like make sort of weird, you know, like, I don't know, audio artifacts or whatever. It would push the amp funny and it would make the guitar respond differently. But I mean, with the Drone Tone now, primarily what I use it for is I set it to like a pitch, like a low E, for example, or a A on the low string. And then I just set it to a rate and I almost sort of just jam along with it like a metronome that has a pitch. So it's sort of like a metronome with a pitch center for me. You know, and other than that, you know, you can also set it to the drone mode and do sort of just like the pitch sweep kind of stuff for crazy effects. But yeah, I mean, that was sort of the idea behind that was it was a separation of those 2 pedals, but also just like a really basic introduction to this kind of an idea.
Yep.
in a guitar pedal because, for most people, it has no practical use whatsoever. You know what I mean? It's not like you're not going to sell like a million of them. You know what I mean? It's not going to be like the DS1 or something.
That was such an epic description. That's really funny.
I mean, that's probably the case for like almost all of my pedals. Like that's. I don't have any illusions of being like because I mean, honestly, I think there's so many builders out there that do like the classic guitar pedals,
sure,
like so good that it's like, you know what I mean? Why would you bother trying to make a better this? Because they've already done it. They've already done it 5 times. Like people that are like, not only like the big players like Boss and stuff who have like a team of engineers in Japan that have been being engineers for their whole lives.
Well, that's
but even
one of the
like
things.
Smaller builders like Chase Bliss, like you can't beat that guy. I mean, look, if you're trying to get like a pedal that can do everything in that particular effect category, you know what I mean? It's like you're not going to find anything better and be able to engineer it better. I can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's one of the things me and Todd were talking about with these pedals, of how there's the ones that we were messing around with, the exception of the delay one, I think. But even with the delay one, there's sort of this like thing going on of this is the pedal you'd want to use at the end of the trippy song to make a lot of crazy noise, and then you bend down at the end of the song.
Or the moment. It's a moment. Yeah. It's sort of a moment use. It's not a always on kind of thing. Yeah.
Something that you'd reach down and then manipulate the knobs and, sort of get some sort of crazy, trippy explosion of noise at the end that then sort of decays out to...
Let me touch on that really quick. We were joking around with Johnny, the idea of Johnny Greenwood, but I think what I've seen a few times in shows lately is I've seen the pedal boards on a pedestal. It should be called a pedal stool. Oh man, I'm gonna make a new product. It's just a pedal board on a stand. It's called the pedal stool. Damn it!
It'll elevate your musical talent to whole new levels.
Whoa. Yes. Anyways, the idea that these are pedals that you would opt to tweak mid-song. It's not set it and forget it. These are very much made for that, for the tweakage. So let's talk about the Bad Passenger really quick.
I mean, that was a friend of mine that I had sold one of those Gator drone fuzzes to, who really liked it, but he's like, you should make a one knob fuzz. And it's like, honestly, something I had never considered doing. For one, because there's so many out there, and for two, it's like with the one knob fuzz, you can't really sell it for very much money because it's got one knob on it. And so like there's not really like much margin there to like make it worth your time to do it over and over. You know what I mean? Sure, to build one or whatever, but that's always sort of the equation you have to run when you're building these and hoping to not lose money in the process. But yeah, I mean, that one started it was actually sort of meant to be the fuzz part of the Gator drone fuzz, because some people really like the fuzz part and some people really like the drone part, but
yeah,
just separating those out. But it didn't quite turn out exactly that way. And honestly, like it's really like sounds best if you're like already at full volume, where it's like you're not getting this huge volume boost because there is no, the knob is just volume. So
I've played some. I'm not a big fuzz fan myself. And,
I'm not a huge fuzz guy.
And
either,
I've tried out about 3 or 4 or 5 different. This is my favorite one. I really like this fuzz pedal. I played it through a couple of AD30 orange amps, and it pushed the amps. I just love the way it sounded, so I just want to throw you that compliment.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I mean, it probably would sound good for that because it's sort of maybe a more woolly sounding fuzz. Yeah. I don't know if that's a way to describe it.
No, I'd agree. That's a good way to describe it. I thought. So when I said it, I like boost pedals. I'm a fan of them. I'm actually working on some myself, and so I saw this. I was like, "Ooh, let's see what this boost pedal does." And I knew that it was called the Bad Passenger fuzz, but you also called it a boost. And like when I turned it up, it just got really loud, and I thought it was just going to get more fuzzy. So I was like, oh crap.
Yeah, it drove that orange amp the amps that I had.
Yeah.
That's what I just loved it.
So it's a boost pedal that just has an always on fuzz factor.
Well, sort of. I mean, I guess it's like I don't know if I marketed that as I have a different boost pedal, the high-low boost. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it has a huge amount of like volume that it can put out, the Bad Passenger fuzz. So yeah, I mean, it can drive anything you want into mayhem, I guess. If that's what
do you recall what the dB range on that is?
I don't have that one rated in dBs so much, just because like it's always distorted to be, you know what I mean, for the most part. So
okay,
that's why I sort of saw it more as a fuzz. But I mean, I guess whatever the maximum number of dBs you could output out of a pedal when it's
that's what you should actually just put on the website, is like the maximum number of dBs you can put on a pedal at once.
I mean, I don't know how. I guess I'm saying I don't know how I would make it louder.
Yeah, like, I don't know how either, because that got really loud. That was exceptionally loud. But it sounds, I mean, we played it through your, was it Little Princeton?
Little Princeton reverb.
Holy moly, man. It was making that thing thunder.
On 3.
So tell us about the swell delay.
Yeah, the swell delay is, it's basically just sort of like, it uses that PT 2399 delay IC. There's tons of pedals that use that one. So it's not an analog delay pedal, but it uses that chip, and that chip is sort of known for having the analog quality where like the repeats sort of lose fidelity. So it sort of has that same kind of vibe as a analog delay pedal, but it doesn't do super long delay times. It probably goes up to like 500 or 600 milliseconds, and then on mine, I left the knob with like the last 3 quarters, like it gets quite a bit noisier, but you also get a lot longer delay time. A lot of times people build it with that chip and they just stop it so it never can get noisy. But I'm just like, well, some people use that as an effect, and sometimes it's nice to be able to have as long a delay as possible.
Well, yeah, you can play over it. And
so the swell basically is just like, it's basically just connecting it'd be like if you just maxed out the repeats knob by pressing a button. That's essentially what the swell button's doing. So anybody who's played with a delay pedal knows that when you like crank the repeats all up, it like flies off into
that's awesome
self-oscillation. But by having like the swell rate knob, I'm not sure if that's a good name for it, but you can sort of set how fast that connection gets made to a certain degree. So at longer times, that takes a longer time for that to ramp up. So a lot of times I use that now, like if you're playing out of a part of a song, a chorus, for example, like on the last chord, I'll step on the swell, and sort of as you're chugging through that, 4 or 8 times, I'll let that build up, and then it'll sort of decay into the next.
That's that's exactly how I was using it.
Yeah. So, you can also set it, depending on where you have the repeats knob and the delay time set, you can make it sort of come up really quick and short too, and you can sort of do some fun things with that.
So Matt, tell us about the wobble room pedal. I had that, and I had a lot of fun using that.
I like that pedal a lot.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. It was like I was chugging along with the rate, and it sounded like I had more than one guitar, like 3 or 4 guitars trying to play. It was pretty cool. So tell us elaborate on the wobble room pedal.
Yeah, the wobble room's sort of a weird one. I mean, I guess both that and the swell delay sort of came out of this Warble Swell delay pedal that's now the Warble Swell Deluxe delay, but it was sort of the same bass delay circuit as the swell delay, but it also had like a modulation that's done like, I guess, optically or whatever. And then I realized like the certain parts of that I liked, but when it was connected to the delay, it was just like couldn't do certain things that I knew it could do if it was on its own. So that's sort of a separation of those two into like, sort of setting up the knobs and the tapers and things to focus on the areas I wanted to. And part of it too with the wobble room is I wanted it to be able to do like really gross depth or sort of sweep. You know what I mean? I guess if that makes sense. I wanted to be able to really go off the rails, because a lot of times I'll get a chorus pedal or something like that, and it can never really get like super gross, and it seems like a lot of the sound change is only like in the last tiny bit of the knob turn or something. And I don't feel like I'm getting like a huge effect, like I can't. So I guess it's just like, and also because I wanted to, part of the goal of building pedals, I wanted to like build all the pedals that I would want instead of buying them. Right. So it's like I wanted to have a vibrato or chorusy type pedal. So that's why I built it. I mean, a lot of the stuff I build is just I want to build it for myself, and I'm like, well, instead of making one, I should make, started out just being I'll make 10. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I'll put them up for sale and see what happens. And then if I sell those, well, then I'll make 10 more, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Touch on that really quick, because I think that's anybody who is dabbling. So I've been dabbling in pedals, and not to be like, oh, I'm going to, go be a pedal builder, because, there's a lot, like you mentioned, there's a lot of people out there doing that, and there's a lot of people out there doing it really well. And I'm not one of them. But I love the idea of getting into the things that I'm working with. And I think it's when you do finish a pedal, you're like, this is a really great pedal. I bet a lot of people would buy this. At what point did you say with that first or second pedal, you're like, you know what? I wonder if people would buy this. Like, hey, go walk us through that a little bit.
Well, I guess it probably started with some of the drone type synthesizer things that don't have any guitar input. Those are the things I first started selling. And, when I first started selling those, like I said, I'd done those tins and things, and I sold those, and it was sort of hard to work with the tins and to find enough weird tins at the thrift store and things to keep that going. So I was like, all right, well then I'll, try and get the Hammond boxes or whatever and make something that's like a little easier to build repeatably. And that's sort of what led to all the other things. To begin with, I didn't plan on building any guitar pedals for exactly like all the things we've been talking about. You know what I mean? It's like there's just so many of them out there and this and that. But then it was like, I sort of wanted to build some for myself. And then I started combining some of the drone synth things with guitar pedals, and I'm like, oh, well, this is sort of different. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's not a huge market for it, but there's a way bigger market for guitar pedals than there is for like drone synthesizers on their own. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was sort of like a marriage of those two things. So I mean, that's sort of like part of the reason a lot of the pedals are pretty basic in a certain degree. You know what I mean? They don't do like 10 things. They do like 1 or 2 things because I want them to be like simple and knobby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of us just started trying to build things I wanted, and then it came to the point where it's like, okay, I've made some money back, so now I can reinvest that into like, trying to learn how to do it better or try a new idea. So some pedals I'll build, I'll sell not that many over a period of 6 months, you know what I mean? A particular model. And then sometimes you'll sell a bunch of one for a while. It's sort of.
Do you mind explaining, just out of curiosity, because I think, you're a perfect example of like, hey, I didn't try to set out to do this, but ta-da. Yeah. What is a lot and what is many? Like, do you mind telling us that?
Oh, yeah. No, for me, I mean, last year was like the first year I tried to. I guess I could say it's the first year I made an effort to sell something. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. Like, I'm going to build 10 or 20 of these and like for the purpose of sale. You know what I mean? Not to keep them all for myself. So last year I sold like 239
Holy
pedals
moly.
Or something like that. That's between
for not trying to sell something. That's pretty great.
Yeah, pedals and drone synths, and I had really just been doing that maybe more seriously in the last 6 or 8 months of the year.
So you're quitting your day job is what you're saying?
No, not even close, unfortunately. But anyway, so I started, I got like a lot of good feedback from people, and also something I do with pedals, I always send out like music, because primarily, like, for the last 20 years, I've been playing and making music in a variety of formats. So
Right.
to a certain degree, it was like I wanted the pedals just to be another introduction to whatever. I mean, that's sort of where Mattoverse came from. It's sort of a dumb name for guitar pedals, but like,
What?
like I had like so many different. I had probably like 5 or 6 different music projects online. You got all the flipping Facebook pages and Bandcamp accounts, and like it was sort of an effort to try and like compress all of these things under one heading. You know what I mean?
I like the name.
Yeah, it's
but
the
the guitar
universe of
pedals
Matt,
were just
right?
sort of an extension of that, because it's more about, for me, it's more of like a holistic thing. They're all sort of feeding off each other. You know what I mean? So when I sort of lose the Jones or the drive to write and record music, well, then I can build these things and sort of make them look like neat things, and then I can make music with these things and make videos, and that sort of gets me re-inspired to play the guitar and write songs. So I'm trying to look at it as a feedback loop.
Well, I suspect that there's a lot of people in your shoes, so to speak, of, I've got a full-time job, I'm really into guitar, and I want to do something with that that's beyond, I don't want to be a rock star. Like, I want to build something. And
I want to be a rock star.
Well, and I don't know. I think that there's a real big push in our culture right now where we see people, whether that's, I've got a side project that's a band, or I've started making handmade microphones, or I have started doing voiceover, whatever. I think that there's a huge drive for that, and that's cool, man.
Yeah, well, it's funny because that's us three. All 4 of us on the podcast right now are all suffering from that, or not suffering, but
It sounded like in your guys' introductions or whatever, what you've been up to in the week, like that you're all involved in making or working on stuff. I mean, I think a lot of it for me comes down to like wanting to work with my hands. I don't know what you guys do for jobs, but mine is like in front of a computer, like typing into spreadsheets, basically. You know what I mean? It seems like a lot of jobs are technology based. So a lot of it for me was wanting to like make things that I could touch. I've worked in factories, like machine shops and stuff too. And it's like, essentially you're just making the widget with a different tool. You know what I mean? You're just like taking something and making it look like something everybody wants it to look like, whatever that may be, whether it's a widget or a spreadsheet or a report or blah, blah, blah.
Well, I think that's something that we're seeing just in our culture of like, I want to do something. It's rock, and it needs to be productive. You want to make, I think a real drive, and I think even for us with the podcast of like, there's
and everything else.
Yeah, there's a satisfaction, like, sweet, that's in the can, that's out there, that's a thing.
Well, we're removed. We've become much more removed from from producing things, from making things, from craft. And I mean, over the last couple of years, almost every major corner of our lives and culture has been a boom of craft. Like, you want soap? Holy moly, there's 100 people that are making handmade soap.
Yeah.
You want paper towels? There's some in the bathroom. But if you want, there's nothing that isn't handcrafted now, which is really cool.
Yeah. Well, I think it's maybe some of that's a rebellion against like the Walmarts of this world, but there's something like inherently kick-ass about I made this with my hands, and it's special and unique, and there's a story there, and it for guys like us, it makes noise.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think the internet just enabled like people to see what other people are doing. You know what I mean? Yeah. With places like Etsy and stuff like that. Like, it's just, you can make whatever thing you want, like, and put it on there. Maybe nobody will look at it. And for the most part, like, as a percentage basis, nobody is looking at it. You know what I mean? And nobody ever will. But the world's a pretty big place. There's a lot of people that end up being almost like into the exact same things that you're into in a strange way.
Yep. Well, we're hoping to connect with them all the time.
Yeah, there's so many of us. So
just out of curiosity, when you're sitting down you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to start messing around with this new idea I have for, a wobble fuzz. I don't know. That's an idea, by the way. You can take that and run with it. Are you sort of, I guess, a traditionalist as far as like, well, I better sit down to my breadboard, or like, how do you go about like with your initial exploration? Are you a pen and paper guy? What happens?
It's sort of a little bit of both. I mean, I definitely need the breadboard to see if it's viable. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. But I mean, a lot of times it's just thinking about what it is I think I want it to do. You know what I mean? And then trying to think like what aspects of what I've already done like could be used as potential building blocks. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because like in guitar pedals, it's like pretty modular in a way. Like every pedal, the guitar needs to go in and needs to go out, right? So it needs to go through something, and it's like always needs like not while it's off, but while it's on, like it's got to go through some sort of a buffer or something so that you can mix whatever you're doing with it, or vice versa, or mix it into something. Like most of the stuff in guitar pedals, like there's not that many different ways to skin the cat, I guess.
Well, that's a great segue. Where do you see Mattoverse Electronics going? Like, and I don't mean to give us your 10-year, PowerPoint, but like, what? Surely you're making products that give us the impression that you're thinking ahead of wherever you're at right now. What are you thinking about right now? Where are you going?
I mean, probably more on the less traditional guitar pedal line. I mean, I'll probably keep building like the fuzz and the boost and possibly the wobble room, but like those aren't like, there's so many pedals in those categories already. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like nobody has like an empty spot on their board for another boost or one knob fuzz.
But they don't have awesome video backgrounds.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I don't do it for a living. And, though, like once you start selling some, you're like, oh, maybe I could do this for a living and my life would be amazing. But I mean, I don't know. The reality of it is like, you'd have to make so many, you know what I mean? That
sure.
You'd probably like want to jump off a cliff. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's why it's interesting talking to people like you, because you're making a dent in our guitar world. You have a presence, yeah. But you're doing it out of a passion move, not because you have made a career choice. And I think that's unique among a lot of craftsmanship, to be quite honest. And the fact that it isn't simply that, talking about soap, it's like, hey, I'm not knocking anybody that's making a handmade soap, but guess what? It's handmade soap. And you're not going to innovate, likely. There's not going to be massive innovation in handmade soap, but there is like a world of possibility just with a simple resistor change, I think that's part of the thing that's so fascinating about this kind of craft.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, Matt, we're going to move on to a super exciting, if we can stand any more excitement, portion of our little podcast here.
Okay.
Chris is going to deliver it to the world right now.
We're going to play the guitar version of "Would You Rather."
We see, the thing is, the only effect that we ever have for any kind of an intro is just echo. So maybe that's a pedal, Matt. You can work on an intro pedal.
There we go. Or we could do like this
that has like 8 knobs.
Would you rather? Would you rather?
Would you rather?
Would you rather? Would you rather? So here we go. Here's my would you rather question for you. Would you rather? Let me find it here. Would you rather have?
We all get to answer this.
We all get to answer this. We're going to go in the circle. Would you rather be a super famous musician in your own lifetime, but you're a talentless hack, or have zero musical success until after you die, but you're a musical genius?
That's a good one. Okay, let's give Matt. Well, he just talked for a whole long time, and let's let him get a little bit of water and ponder that. And we're gonna hit Jared with that.
There we go. I'll repeat it. Super famous and successful, but terrible musician, or not successful in your own lifetime, but you're a musical genius.
I will take the latter. I will take the not rich and famous,
But you're a genius.
but a genius in music. Yes, I would any day, guys. Me personally, I've dealt with some people that have had the fame and all that kind of thing. And I just don't want to be one of them guys that are up playing the same song that they've been playing for 40 years. I feel for those guys. You know, Can you imagine being the Eagles and playing Hotel California for 40 years? I mean, can you
imagine like a gold lined swimming pool that they're probably drinking a Mai Tai
I don't have
in
to have that
right now?
Me personally, I don't have to have the I don't know what the Scrooge Duck the swimming pool of money and gold. I just don't have to have all that, man.
No, I get that.
I would take a different approach to this question. I would much rather be a talentless hack who's successful in his own lifetime. However, I would probably preface it with a talentless hack who doesn't take himself seriously.
Okay.
If I knew I was a talentless hack and then it was just ridiculous that I was like, had one hit wonder, a bunch of hits, but they were all terrible.
Well, that's the James Franco effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Where he's like, I mean, whatever.
But it's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. So he is kind of a genius, actually, in doing that. Matt Olson of Mattoverse.
I'd probably lean towards the latter one, but
so a musical. You'd rather be a musical genius and no one ever know.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it probably comes more down to like the experience during life. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of people that are famous, whether they're talentless hacks or not, like aren't really like necessarily enjoying it necessarily that much more than the guy that never gets any attention.
Yeah.
Like the struggle, I think, or whatever, like the trying to write a great song or whatever it may be. Like, I think that sort of was a never ending.
Yeah.
And if there was a choice where you could have that not be there and like you could just enjoy it and whatever comes, but I think it's always going to be a struggle to.
Can I jump in, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Let me give an example. Because him and I are kind of on the same line here, you know, the same choice. The name's not coming to me. Not Steve Martin, but
Steve Winwood.
no.
George Martin.
What about
Martin Lawrence.
What about Bob Actor?
Bob Hope.
No.
Bob Ross.
What about Bob Actor?
Richard Dreyfuss.
No, in Groundhog Day.
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray. Bill Murray wrote a story about how he had his car break down or something, and he was in Marion, Ohio or something like that. And nobody really knew who he was, and they were kind to him. Somebody found him on the side of the road, took him into town. They went to a local diner. Nobody came up to him and approached him and said, "Oh, Bill Murray, give me your autograph." Blah, blah, blah. He was so thrilled about that. He wrote about it, and it was an article. It was a thing. It was a story. Huh. He was so excited about it. He threw Marion, Ohio, a bone and complimented them for not, you know what I mean? Just flocking around him like, flies on poop.
Well. All right, I'm just going to play devil's advocate. I'll take being a talentless hack and getting the payoff for it.
Okay.
I've spent most of my life being a talentless hack and not getting paid for it, so I might as well try the other side. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's what I would do. I mean, why not? It'd be fun to try it.
But people would be talking about you like, man, that guy is talentless and he's a hack.
But
everybody's going to know.
But I'd be swimming in my gold line swimming pool and I wouldn't care.
As long as you were okay with people.
And I could buy
thinking
so
you were a
many
hack.
guitars
Hey,
and
you're
millions of. I had so many pedals, so many knobs and pedals.
You know, I've been privileged to have a lot of guitars and a lot of equipment.
You have some pretty nice stuff. Dude.
I do, and I just don't have the desire to get more anymore. I'm
we
satisfied.
have to fix that.
Nah,
We have to fix that.
I'm just kind of satisfied with the gear I have. But I will talk about gear all day. I love talking gear, man.
Well, that's where you and Matt seem to be very akin. Would you say so?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm probably like, you guys probably caught me at like my least gear obsessed phase of my life. Because if you would have talked to me like 2 or 3 years ago, like I could go on forever about any gear related nonsense.
Well, speaking of gear-related nonsense, our gear-related nonsense time is up. And we're going to say adieu to everyone. We're so grateful, Matt, for joining us. And we hope to hear a whole lot more about the new stuff that you're doing. Please keep us informed. And guys, do you have any parting words for Mr. Olson, a.k.a. Mattoverse?
Thank you for doing what you do. It's a lot different, and it's fun.
Yeah, and so you can check out Matt's stuff at mattoverse.com. And make sure if you're not following him on Instagram, you do so, because it's a kick. It's a hoot. It's a holler.
I just want to say thanks for having me on. It was good to talk to you guys. I wish I could have seen you the whole time. I think it would have been
Yeah,
good to...
I agree. It would be super fun to do that. To those who are listening, we're doing this over Skype, and we had a little bit of time to hang out on video for just to get sound check, but in order to make sure that we have the best connection we can, so that you get the best audio quality we can.
Yeah, you're not eating up your bandwidth.
Yeah, so we try to do that and make sure we get the audio. But, you're not too dang far away. I'm sure our paths will cross at some point.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I mean, thanks for getting interested in my weird nonsense videos and my terrible noisemakers. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. and throw it one if you can. If you want to go up on the Facebook, the Guitar Knobs group, and share some of the music that you're doing, that'd be really cool too, man.
Yeah, sure. I can try and do that.
Cool.
I mean, I try and link everything in through Mattoverse. I'm not a me pusher, as they say. If people want to check it out, then they're definitely welcome to. But
I get it. Well, maybe we'll do that for you then. How about that?
Okay, if you want, that's up to you.
All right, Matt. Thanks a lot, and subscribe. That's a pedal. You just make it that sound, and you just keep it going. It oscillates forever. Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit us at our website at theguitarknobs.com for episodes, news, and guest profiles. You can get all social with us on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/guitarknobs. Give us a tweet at guitar_knobs. And check out our gallery on Instagram at guitarknobs. No spaces on that one.